All right, how are y'all doing? If you get a chance this week and feel so led, would you give me some feedback on the course from your perspective? Is it helping you? Is it giving you things you haven't seen before? If not, what would you like to see? Give me a little feedback on the pace, on the effectiveness of the tools we're using, and some things like that. I won't be able to overhaul the course completely, but I certainly want to make this course helpful to you as the future teacher. This is probably one of my very favorite courses that I teach. In fact, it probably is right now. I teach an assessment practices course for a different school, and this is just more, the writing thing is my thing, and I get excited about it, but I don't want to lose anybody along the way. And I know we're coming from a lot of different perspectives. I just got done replying to your discussion boards and blogs, and I kind of hesitated to do it before the deadline of your own replies because I didn't want to interrupt that conversation. And I know that that can be my tendency sometimes, is to butt in, and then that sways the conversation. But I went ahead and did that just so you had saw me in there looking at your work. And I've noticed that we have quite a few special ed teachers. And so, as we go through these things, continue to make this work for the classroom context that you plan on teaching. Special ed looks different, and I don't have a special ed background, but I've worked in inclusion classrooms for many years, and so we can help each other along the way. And I think that's really important that we see those variety of contexts. So I'm really excited about this. I hope that it's helping you. I constantly see new materials. I'm trying not to inundate you with new things. Occasionally I might send an optional reading link in a discussion board, something that really strikes me or whatnot. But I really like what you had to say this week about the climate that you want. And there were so many that overlapped that I almost at times thought I was reading the same thing. But we have such a shared vision on what we want children of all ages to experience when they walk into our rooms. And I love that you're passionate about that. I think that's really important. So if you have a second, shoot me an email about how things are going for you in this course. And obviously, anytime you have questions, feel free to email or reach out in the way that works for you through the classroom or through the email. What are we doing this week? We're going to be looking at what our role is as the teacher. And I think in a writing class, I once heard it said that a writing teacher is not just an instructor, they are a mentor, because we hear more about, the English department gets more personal anecdote and knows who's having dangerous thoughts and whose parents are splitting up and think about how many things we're privy to, and those are heavy things, but we also get their celebrations, right? So we're kind of their mentors at times. We're their coach, the attaboy, attagirl kind of stuff. We're also, sometimes we play editor, maybe more than we should. But think of all the different roles we have as teachers as we read through these. And we're also going to talk about how we structure the classroom. Now, this is a 2-week unit, as usual. So keep in mind as we look at this material, this is 2 weeks worth of development. In our readings this week, we're going to return to the faculty focus reading on keeping introverts in mind in your active classroom. Some of you might relate to this. In fact, I think it's always good to do a gut check. We tend to teach in the ways that we like to be taught, but we don't represent every student, do we? Duh. So as we look through this information, kind of consider all the different types of learners you have. I'm teaching an online class right now where we're actually we started the year with a learning styles inventory. It was for a high school online course. And just trying to keep students also self-aware so that they know how to best access material in ways, study in ways that help them. But how can we kind of get a pulse on our students and make sure that we're not driving certain temperaments away while we welcome others? So something to consider. This gets fun here. I love, and this again, faculty focus is for more of like for college professors, but I think there's a lot of things that we can glean from it. Activities that create a climate for learning, and some of you already talked about keeping a Pinterest board or whatever it is that you collect for ideas, maybe ideas that other teachers have used for you. I'm going to share a few in a second here, just sort of as a little mini idea session. But looking at the goals you have in mind, choosing 2 or 3 really big things that you want the course itself to be remembered by, and creating first day activities, first impression activities that really make the impact that you're intending to make based on the classroom climate piece. I had a friend that used to say he always wore a necktie the first 6 days of class, and after that, students always just assumed he had one on. There is something to be said about that. There are studies that show that those first six contacts are really crucial in setting a tone. And so, no pressure, but there is a lot of pressure. So, what are we going to do to deliberately set up the first day of class activities or the first 6 days of class activities to make sure that we are going where we want to go with that class? Not just content, but context. Okay, and then 5 things you should do on the first day of class. Again, faculty focus type thing. There are some videos in this week's class, and I'll show you those in a moment, but these are just some getting started types of things. I might throw another reading at you midweek, just not a required one, but I saw another one about creating community and that kind of thing that I would love to for you to share with you, because I'm constantly reading as well. Okay, the discussion board this week, again, in week 1, you're reading and you're making initial posts in the discussion board and blog. Wiki is for week 2. I think we've got all of our bugs worked out of the wikis and the blog and the discussion, but if we don't, let me know. Okay, so your initial posts in this week, we're only going to focus on that, not the replies right now. Answering these discussions. I've noticed that in teaching this course that a lot of students have never done writing workshop. I actually went to my son's 2nd grade curriculum meeting last night, and guess what? They do reading and writing workshop. I asked to the side a junior high teacher that I know from the same school district, and I said, okay, when they're talking reading and writing workshop, are they talking about that generically, or are they talking about Outwell? And she goes, oh yeah, we do Outwell. So kind of funny that, some of the schools you go to may have these programs in place, or you may be sort of the oddball. When I started teaching writing and reading workshops, I didn't know about Outwell. Clear back in the day when I started 20 years ago, I just felt like it worked. I wanted less of me. I wanted more hands-on. I wanted more one-on-one instructions and things like that. So I did not experience a writing workshop per se as a student. Maybe some things that you could call that, and I know what didn't and didn't work. Also, how can first impressions and past impressions shape a student's learning as they enter the classroom? So, draw on your own experiences here. You can draw on the readings as well, or you can make guesses. Second of all, in the blog, and this is highlighted in green because this particular blog entry is going to make its way into your final wiki. So when you go to do your final wiki, this is going to move down as a wiki, part of your wiki, as a page in your wiki, or however you decide to organize it. It's a top 5 list, and basically in the wiki I want to create some places for resource gathering, kind of like you do on your Pinterest boards or whatever else you use to gather and collect. And I want you to find 5 activities, either in these readings or on your own, that you think really feed into the tone that you're trying to create, the climate you're trying to create. And I do want you to cite your resources if they're not original. We're not even going to talk about the wiki this week. I'm going to take the next couple minutes just to talk to you about a few activities that I've tried. Don't feel like any obligation to add these to your top 5. I will not have my feelings hurt. I do promise you that. But one thing I used to do on the higher end of the spectrum, on my world literature students, I taught at a very small school, and this was a college prep course. We did not have AP courses per se, but the students in this class essentially took the AP course test and passed. They scored well on it, so pretty rigorous academics. World literature in a rural community. I looked at the context of students I was teaching and realized that a lot of them had never even tasted ethnic food other than pizza, if you can count that, and decided that we were going to have some real hiccups in learning world literature because we had a pretty ethnocentric rural view of the world. And so I started the classroom with an activity. I wanted to break down some communication walls. I wanted students to be able to communicate with one another, but I also wanted to set them up to start thinking about communicating with the literature that we read. So I set them up into 2 countries, and it was all made up, and basically I gave parameters, private parameters to each group, so neither group knew what the other group's parameters were, and they had a joint goal of tearing down a wall in the classroom, which was just a row of desks, but they had to do it following the rules on their sheet. So one group could only had very strong cultural mores that if they were violated, they would react negatively, and the other group's cultural mores were exact opposites. So I set them up for a clash, and it was awesome to watch them go through this small group initiative. I actually got it from my working at camp as camp counselor days. It was a small group problem solving initiative that I brought into a writing classroom, and you set them up for reading and writing later in the class. It was a fun activity. It was tough. It took a little extra prep, and I had to let them kind of conflict, which was hard for me as a teacher because I wanted everybody to be happy and get along right away. But it was an interesting way to start out the class, and it was something different than starting out with the syllabus. For my younger students, my sophomores, I actually got an idea from an elementary teacher where she had students decorate the outside of a shoebox. I think I mentioned this to one of you in your blog response, with character traits and pictures and symbols that represented what people usually see that person as, what their appearances are, or what they do, their hobbies, their interests that are well known. And on the inside of the box, I had them decorate their boxes with things that people might not know about them, the things that maybe are a little deeper inside, that are a little more hidden. And we talked about, first impressions and outside appearances, inside, those kinds of things where students really want to be known. Had them bring their shoe boxes to class in bags that you couldn't see through. And I numbered them when they walked in. I had like a little number next to name, so I knew whose box was whose. Then in class, they had to guess to see how well they could maybe identify the box with the student, and it led into a personal reflection essay that we kind of jumped off into, and eventually into a study of a book that was actually the book A Separate Peace, where we talked about what people act like versus what they're really going through on the inside. So it kind of set us up for internal and external characterization and some literature things, but it also gave us something to write about, as well as breaking that ice of getting to know one another. So these are just a few ideas I've tried. As you can see, I tried to kind of push the envelope of what students are going to expect. One of the things that I purposely do in classes is set them up to be a little surprised the first day of school and to expect the unexpected. That may not work as well in some of your contexts, but consider again the classroom climate you're trying to achieve and how your first time experiences can really feed that climate and start growing that climate from the first day of class. Have a great week.